Too late for the other side. Caught in a chase, 25 to life. Too late for the other side.
When the Dutch came to South Africa in the 17th century, they colonized themselves there. In the early 1900s, the Dutch discovered diamonds there, which then led to the English invasion of the land. After time passed and the country slowly filled up with more and more Afrikaners, which are Dutch settlers, to the point where they now held a strong majority in the country. The National Party then introduced Apartheid as a means of controlling the economy and the social system. In 1948, racial discrimination was adopted. The racial laws affected every aspect of social life, including white-only jobs, and marriage between whites and non-whites was not allowed. In 1984, people were made to believe that marriage, love, and sex was only to reproduce. There was no feelings between them at all. In 1950, they came out with the Population Registration Act. It said that all South Africans were to be classified into separate groups: white, black African, or colored of mixed descent. They were classified by social acceptance, appearance, and descent. In 1951, the Bantu Authorities Act terminated all the South African cities and towns into countries, and therefore stripping them of their citizenship for South Africa, also making it impossible for them to run in Parliament. This is very much alike 1984, because if you were a pro in that time, you couldn't run to work with Big Brother. It just didn't work out that way. From 1976 to 1981, they had left 9 million South Africans homeless with nothing, and from then on, living in Africa at this time and being any race but white was very harsh and unpleasant. After being stripped of their citizenship, they really had nowhere to go. They now had to stay in their small country that the government created and pray that someone would be able to find a job or start working to bring in money for the family. The people started living together and helping each other to get through the hard time. They would live 6 to a house if they had to, but remember, these weren't actual houses they lived in. They were more like huts. In 1994, elections were held. The United Nations sent 2,120 international observers to go to South Africa and ensure that the elections were done fairly. Nelson Mandela, who is the African leader who had been jailed for 27 years, is elected president. During the 5 years that Mandela was president, himself and the government committed themselves to rebuilding and reforming their country. He held his position as government until 1999. What happened in South Africa can relate to 1984 because when the settlers first came to Africa, they completely took over and almost brainwashed all the people that lived there, excluding them from making any decisions, banning them from being free in their own homeland, and stripping them of their citizenship. In 1984, Big Brother is the boss of everything, and even though no one among the Kroll's inner or outer party had met him, they were all forced to believe in what Big Brother said was right, therefore keeping them from making any decisions for themselves. The people that lived in Africa in this time period knew what it was like to have nothing and to be alienated in their own country. In 1984, Winston was alienated. He was made to believe whatever they told him, which isn't exactly the same as what happened in Africa, but is very close to the same feeling, not knowing who you are or what you're going to do. The people that lived in South Africa struggled for everything. After everything they had was taken away from them, they still struggled to regain their power. They protested to get their rights back, or even just run for parliament to change what was happening around them. But it was impossible for them because once they tried to stand up for themselves, the government would make or pass a new law which banned them from doing anything, including running in parliament. This caused an even bigger struggle for them to get their power back.
Well, that's alright.